Magic the Gathering has a 4-color problem. You see, over the course of its more than 20 years, it has failed to give us any 4-color based sets. And you know what, that's always bugged me, as someone who spends so much time talking about the color pie. Because of this, I decided I would take matters into my own hands. And so, inspired by the composition of the Shards of Alaraa, I built 5 planes, each comprised of only 4 colors of mana, to understand what this would look like. But I wasn't done there. Satisfied with the worlds I had built, I wanted to dig a little deeper, and so followed that video up with 2 more, each discussing what factions would populate those planes. This video is a compilation of that series, to help bring to life that which Magic has not given us. So if you love playing with ideas in Magic, are interested in world building for D&D, or just love stories, then this video is for you. Sit back, get comfortable, and prepare yourself to be transported to new worlds. Dracorium is a plane of turmoil and violence. It has been for thousands of years and will be for thousands of years to come. Because of the near constant turbulence that sweeps the land, it is a plane with no major factions, but instead is littered with many minor ones. Each of these factions are tumultuous, breaking apart and reforming into new ones as continual war grips the plane, each faction vying for power, or just simply lashing out due to old grudges. Some say this continual war is a product of the plane itself, of its lack of white mana, which has always fostered this undercurrent of anarchy and brutality, like a fire that is born in the belly of every inhabitant. No other creature or race exemplifies this more than the dragonkin, their bodies scaled like armor, their claws like swords, always ready to engage in combat, and enthusiastic to do so. War does have one benefit though, and that is cultivating technology aimed at winning wars. As such, Dracorium is a plane with an acute eye for artifice and augmentation, but only of that which sheds blood. Artificers and warriors are inseparable aspects of this plane's identity, with the warriors made up of red and black mana, their fierceness knowing no bounds, and the artificers, that of blue and green, who experiment with forging death machines and biomechanical enhancements of war. No clan can hope to prosper without either the warrior's flame or the artificer's hammer. With a lack of white mana, there are no open and idyllic spaces to rest, as if the land itself meant to be uncomfortable. Thus, wars are fought on sharp mountains and deep jungles, rough seas and bubbling swamps. No lasting structure can be found anywhere, and borders are always changing, due to the constant war and the struggles between the many clans. Thus, the inhabitants of this plane are nomadic by necessity. As such, caravans of varying sizes snake across the plane, with large machines lumbering along beside them, the rumble of war always present. Aracelis is a plane devoid of blue mana, and as such the plane has remained relatively primitive compared to the others, as there is little desire for an expansion of knowledge present in any of its inhabitants. Instead, the people of this plane prefer to live off of what has sustained them since time forgotten. By utilizing wild magic, they've been able to supplement their lack of science with a greater connection to the natural world. In this way, the plane has remained relatively unchanged for countless years, with no real advancements or technological leaps. This has resulted in a world where each faction within values the old ways and the traditions of their people. Why move forward when what has always worked for us continues to do so? This continual application of traditions over the course of countless generations have had the effect of slowly evolving each faction to reflect them. The white-aligned faction, having relied on traditions based on cooperation, have valued their rituals of reproduction, and so their numbers are vast, yet their stature is small in order to maintain resources. The black faction, having valued traditions that favor individual strength, is tested through annual tournaments, which has resulted in them growing larger and stronger than any other inhabitant. The Red faction holds fast to traditions that value expressions, ones facilitated by large parties held during their many festivals, which have rendered them lithe and wild. Finally, those of Green act upon the oldest traditions of solidarity with the earth, and so they lay sleeping in her care, only waking once every 10 years. As such, their bodies are thick and covered with moss, which seems to grow from their skin. This is how Aracelis has remained for centuries forgotten, and may stand for many centuries more. For why progress when everything we need is right here? Luminesca is a beacon of light among the 5 planes, for the darkness of black has never held its sway over the land. The plane itself is one sprawling, interconnected cityscape, with the obelisk of the Old Father at its center, an artifact that has been there for longer than any person can recall. This obelisk radiates light which streams out across the plane like rivers of golden mana. This radiant energy coats the plane in a warm luminescence, which grants a sense of calmness to all. Because of the interconnected nature of this plane and the influence of the obelisk, cooperation is a way of life. Each person within this plane holds no position over one another, and each fulfills only their specific task. The only ones who could be said to hold greater influence are the 4 keepers. These keepers are appointed by the people and tested by the Old Father, and if deemed worthy, take their seat as the 4 aspects of the plane's ideologies. These aspects are the Keeper of Order, the Keeper of Knowledge, the Keeper of Compassion, and the Keeper of Tradition. Each of these keepers exemplify the core tenets that hold this society together, and are said to be the only ones who can commune with the Old Father. Within each of the keepers' domains are assigned districts and primary responsibilities. In the Serenity Enclave, elected officials study and refine laws. Within the Quillspire, librarians and scientists cultivate vast knowledge. Over at the Heartwell, empath mages remove the ailments of one's soul and mind. And finally, in the Heritage Haven, the words of the Old Father are reflected upon, and is a place where traditional ceremonies are held. Each citizen among these districts then works tasks that help the society function in different ways, all culminating in a shared ecosystem of cooperation and responsibility to one another. Mythoria is a gray world where function trumps expression, and red mana is nowhere to be found. One where no act may be carried out without much bureaucracy, with regulations upon regulation. You see, in Mythoria there is a great repulsion towards chaos, and as such, anything that could lead to it is stifled. This results in a shared rejection of emotions in any way, for emotion leads to expression, and expression leads to impulsive action, and impulsive action leads to chaos. Because of this, everything moves slow and in a singular and forward direction. Thus, there is no room for anything that can lead to personal expression, meaning that art, music, and performance are banned in any form, though without any red mana present, such demands aren't required. All this leaves the inhabitants of this plane with is their work, leading to a plane where one's job and rank become their entire identity. This heavily structured system is one where forward mobility is the end goal of each citizen. For what other way is there to prove one's value than to achieve a greater job or role? This mentality among the people is exemplified by the vast network of corporate-sounding titles, with each person in this society taking orders from or giving orders to several others. This ensures that no one person may act in a way that is not co-signed by another. It is a plane where every act is based on logical outcomes, and never emotional outbursts. In this way, war between rival factions doesn't happen on the battlefield, but rather in one of the great halls, one where the best resolution is debated in a calm and collected manner. Oftentimes, these debates can last generations. The longest of these wars has been going on for 150 years. Welcome to Mythoria. Athex Prime is our final plane, one where green mana has never been present in the composition of this world. Without the essence of nature flowing through everything, the land has deteriorated into a wretched place. Great deserts choke the land, jagged and sharp mountains cut at the sky, putrid swamps bubble with toxic waste, and the ocean is acidic. It is a seemingly inhospitable plane, and yet the inhabitants have evolved to sustain themselves in such a world. The Stonekin's resilient bodies and adaptable nature have allowed them to thrive where no other humanoid could hope to do so. Some say the plane once held the lushness of green mana, but the people who lived here before destroyed everything, and now they are gone and only the Stonekin remain. In the vile swamps, the Stonekin clans with obsidian skin plan their expansions into other realms. Those who live off the coast, their skin made up of turquoise, have learned to refine the acidic ocean using alchemy. The Stonekin of the harsh mountain ranges, their skin like that of volcanic rock, erupt from their enclaves to raid settlements. The Stonekin of the desert, with layers of sedimentary rock on their back, are slow-moving and prefer to build permanent cities within the vast desert. Survival here is predicated on sapping what little resources exist from the plane and controlling the rest. From each domain the Stonekin expand, some more aggressive than others. It is said that none can coexist, and it is this mentality that has further ravaged everything around them. On a plane where there is no white mana present, the formulation of true factions is far less rigid than any of the other four, leaving the plane littered with uncounted minor ones. As such, it can be hard to pinpoint two in particular to focus on in today's study. So instead, it's best to understand the factions of Dracorium as a spectrum, with two extremes at either end and variations in the middle. On one side, you have the factions that lean more heavily into the colors blue and black, while on the other, you have those composed of red and green. The blue-black leaning factions are ones who believe in victory through augmentation and technology, while those at the red-green extreme believe in victory through strength and tradition. You see, long before the Dragonkin were locked in perpetual war, there was a time of relative peace, a sort of balance held by the four dragons. But as they faded into history, their children became split on how to move forward without them. Those Dragonkin of blue-black were eager to move past the ancient ways of the four dragons, believing that the dragons' fates were sealed because they were rigid in their ways. As such, they rely heavily on technology, resulting in their bodies adapting to suit such a way of life, with longer fingers, more agile hands, and smaller frames overall. While those of the red-green clans believe that the dragons faded because their children turned away from them and their ways. As such, they aim to go back to those times, to build their bodies and spirits up so that one day a true dragon may be born from them. Because of this way of life, these dragonkin are much more physically imposing, with dense scales, razor-sharp claws, the ability to breathe fire, and in rare cases wield wild magic, something that has been forgotten by those dragons of blue-black. These opposing ideologies place both sides ever at odds with one another, a fight of the past versus the present, carving out perpetual resentment. But do not be fooled, it is not just one side against the other, as even those clans who hold on to similar colors and ideologies do not find any common ground either, as the methods to reach these goals are always driven by an eccentric force among them, placing their own version of what is best for their people ahead of any other. Perhaps one day the dragons of old will return, and a new era can begin. On Aracelis, a plane where everything moves slow and remains relatively unchanged for ages, the factions of this world have refined themselves down to the core aspects of the colors they represent. Under the color white, you have the Ironwood Republic, who build many homes among the wilds of this plane. To the Ironwood, family is everything, and the depth and width of one's family tree is a matter of pride. And considering the gnomes of Aracelis live for over 200 years, these trees are often vast. Each of these great families have songs which act as crests and are passed along to each member. When it comes to governance between the many families, There is a system of council where a representative is sent from each family, and then each representative votes on the motions brought up in those meetings. This ensures that each family is heard, and none, no matter the size, holds greater sway than the other. This is how it has been for ages forgotten, and how it will remain long after. Next, I would speak of the Red faction of the Feywild Alliance. This red-aligned faction is one who lives comparatively shorter human lives, but it suits them just fine, as they often say, "A short life lived well is better than a long life lived cautiously." These lives are then marked by an abundance of festivals, which mark every major and minor event, yet they are not held without thought or care, as each festival comes with it its own spirit, which is a manifestation of the abundance of emotions gathered from such events. These festivals focus all the energy of the attendees into a single totem held at its center. These totems are then a source of magic that radiates with the energy put into it. By harnessing these spirits and the resulting magic, it has provided these people with abundance from harvests, healing, and transportation. Thus, the Feywild Alliance has been able to spread across the plane and remain interconnected through their systems of waygates. So while there are many festivals, each serve a very specific purpose, one that enhances the society with a source of magic based in the gathered emotions from their many festivals. On the radiant plane of Luminesca, the only factions are those that serve under the four keepers, of which I will speak of two, the Keeper of Knowledge and the Keeper of Tradition. Deep in the Quill Spires where the Blue Keeper, or Keeper of Knowledge, and his followers reside. It is here where every word that the Old Father has passed on to the present four keepers, and of those keepers who have come before, are documented in many great tomes. Each tome is held in high regard, and is used to teach the people the lessons of the Old Father. Though this is not the entire collection, as deeper still into the heart of the spire is the Library of Secret Truths, a section that is sealed away by powerful magics. It is here where the first keepers laid out the truths that must remain hidden, and is only accessible by other keepers. On rare occasions, this coveted collection is added to, with the deepest truths that must remain secret, those words passed on by the Old Father which must remain hidden. Now, such discussions may mislead you into thinking the Quill Spire is merely a place of documentation, but this is not all that takes place here. It is also a place of science and magic, where the minds within work to make Luminesca a better place through discovery. Things like mana lines to power cities, or the simple automatons who have provided respite for the people to ease the burdens of everyday life. Now, far from the Quill Spire resides the Heritage Haven, a lush cropping of ancient buildings surrounded by the First Forest. It is here where the Keeper of Tradition and his followers reside. It is a place where the ceremonies of the keepers are held, chief among them being the ceremonies that pick the next keeper once one has died or has been returned to the Father. As such, they facilitate the training of those that would wish to achieve the coveted role of keeper, and where they facilitate the voting and ascension of keepers as well. When the time comes to appoint a new keeper, they are taken down the golden path to look up into the eye of the Old Father, a place where it is said the keepers may speak to the Ancient One. As such, the Keeper of Tradition and their followers are keen to maintain the traditions that have held their society together since times lost. For if the ceremonies or the path were to degrade in any way, so too would their ties to the Old Father and all of Luminesca. On the perpetually grey plane of Mythoria, everyone has a job, and their job consumes their entire life. For idle hands are the cradle of chaos. As such, each faction are more like companies or guilds, which are defined by the roles they play within Mythorian society. This is where the Auditors of Truth come in. You see, in a society where order must be maintained at all cost, and one's own thoughts should not be trusted, it becomes increasingly important to utilize propaganda to ensure that each citizen only knows what is required of it, that there is laws that codify the purpose of a good citizen, and of the hand that ensures all laws are followed to the letter. While Mythoria is split into many smaller guilds and companies, the Auditor's only allegiance is to order and taxes. On the other hand, there is another plane-wide faction that serves no allegiance except to those that pay their wages, and that is the Ebonmouth, who are hired out to guilds to debate on their behalf during the many guild wars or mediations. Since outright combat is banned and no true wars are ever fought, the Ebonmouth play the part of warriors, though warriors of tongue and pen. As such, they are one of the most respected and old orders on Mythoria. Since these debates often last generations, it's important for this faction to maintain vast records, so that every case can be passed on to the next generation. As such, this faction has two core parts to it: speakers and scribes. The speakers are like lawyers who debate on behalf of a guild or company, and typically skew more to black, while the scribes document everything and maintain a vast stockpile of every case or detail about every guild. While the Ebonmouth has been crucial in maintaining order through their great debates, no one can even recall what the first case was. But the scribes are confident they can find it somewhere in this pile of papers, surely. In the wastelands of Athex Prime, where only the Stonekin remain, the color pie has solidified like the ore that dots this world. As such, each faction has become entrenched in one of the four colors that make up this world's composition. The topic of today's video will be of those in blue mana and those in black. To call them factions wouldn't really make sense here though, and any name I could use isn't one I could even hope to pronounce in my human tongue. Instead, the Stonekin just are what they are, and are more defined by where they reside and the effect it has upon them. As such, specific cultures have formed, but they did so merely out of their connection to their location. The blue Stonekin call the Silver Expanse home, the Great Acidic Oceans. It is here where, through alchemy, they have learned to refine this vast body of water into a form of food they can use to sustain themselves. Because of this, alchemy is a large part of who they are, and they have become quite adept at it, even going as far as transmuting the ores of this plane, including their own bodies. In fact, these Stonekin of these lands are born jagged and unrefined, but as they age and their skills grow, their bodies become smooth and bright blue, with the most adept among them adorned by intricate filigree. In contrast to these shining and bright Stonekin are those that come from the great swamp they call Mother. These Stonekin do not reproduce, but instead are born from the swamp, thus the name Mother. But to be born from the swamp, a soul must be placed within. Cryptic, I know, but the truth is that it's a matter of transfer, of placing a dead Stonekin, who was not born of the swamp, into Mother's grasp. Because of this, the Stonekin must perpetually find new bodies to place into the swamp, lest they die out. To do so, there is but two options: raid graves and take back recently deceased Stonekin, or to raid settlements and create some recently dead themselves. As such, the Obsidian Stonekin will undertake what they call soul raids every few years, all in an effort to kill and bring back several new souls for the swamp. This pleases Mother, who seems to be connected to all born from her at the center of their society. Dracorium is a plane defined by the warring Dragonkin clans and the elder dragons that came before them, of constant bloodshed and the rumble of war machines. Our previous visits may have led you to believe that this is all there is, and that the Dragonkin are the only sentient race to call this brutal world home. But the truth is they are not the only race upon its soil. These other races and factions have found a way to survive or thrive in a world where war is a constant reality, and the threat of the encroaching Dragonkin are ever present. One such faction are the Grimstone Dwarves of Black and Green, who have carved out a vast kingdom in Dracorium's greatest mountain, the Everhall. Nestled within its rugged peaks, the Grimstone Dwarves have forged their realm as a bastion against the eternal shadow of the dragon's flame. Over the centuries, the Dragonkin have attempted to lay siege to it, and over those centuries they have failed, for the Everhall is nigh impenetrable, with its gates made of galanite, the hardest ore on the plane, and of its many cannons that jet out from cliff faces, like fingers that reach out to cull legions. But if by some miracle you do manage to breach its gates, you're met with great warriors who, while stout, can stand toe-to-toe with the fiercest dragonkin. It's even said that for a Grimstone to be considered for the right of baronhood, they must lay down a dozen dragonkin skulls along their hearth. Such is the way of those who have relied on the traditions of strength to carve out their own place among Dracorium for centuries lost. Now, while aggressive defense has kept the Grimstone alive in such a hostile world, there are the blue-red goblins who have instead eked out a symbiotic relationship with the most technological factions of the Dragonkin. Unlike their dwarven counterparts, the goblins have sought not to confront the dragons head-on, but instead have learned to coexist with them in a delicate dance of survival through usefulness. Through the years, these goblins have become a part of the Dragonkin hordes because they are both reckless and clever, with a keen eye for artifice and a willingness to put their bodies on the line to test it. Oftentimes, you will see these goblins at the front of any legion, some with rockets strapped to their backs, or others, 10 in total, riding lumbering contraptions, each with a hand on a knob or lever, their laughter echoing alongside the roar of engines and the clash of metal. The Dragonkin by no means respect these little critters, but they cannot deny their ingenuity and spunk. Among the ancient unchanging lands of Aracelis, we have learned of the factions who build homes in great numbers, and of those who thrive through the magic manifested in festivals. But in today's excursion to these lands, I will introduce you to the factions of Black Mana, the Zotl Death Shapers, who've utilized sacrificial rites to carve out a great empire, while those of Green Mana, the Autumn Accordants, who heed the call of the seasons, migrating long distances on the back of mammoths. The Zotl Death Shapers have long since depended on the magic born from necrotic energies found in sacrificial rites. These rites are so important to them that all their rulers throughout history have been either priests or priestesses, necromancers with great power who are able to draw out the energies found in one's soul. Such magic has provided these people with bountiful harvests, the ability to control weather, and to erect great wards to keep their kingdom safe. This has granted the Zotl people with wealth and power, a nation unlike any other on the plain of Aracelis. As such, these rites and those that are sacrificed are treated with great reverence, and it's said the first priests sacrificed their own son as to impress upon the people that death was only the beginning of one's journey. Such is their reverence for death, with every aspect of their lives intertwined with the rituals and sacrifices that sustain their power, whose dominion extends far beyond the mortal realm. In contrast is the Autumn Accordants, who have not drawn any lines on a map to call their own nation, and who have chosen to live a nomadic existence long ago. These custodians of the seasons heed the ancient call of nature's cycle, embarking on arduous migrations that span vast distances on the back of their mammoths. It's said that they follow the cycles of Aracelis, and whether this is true or not, their migrations are a sign that change is coming. Among the Autumn Accordants, you will find druids and shamans, those in touch with the very soul of this ancient plane. As such, they seem to care little for the goings-on of the mortal races of this world, only halting their movements to care for the land and animals themselves. Some animals have even adapted their own migration patterns to follow behind the Accordants. No one really knows who the first of their kind was or where they originate from, but all know of their presence, which serves as a silent testament to the eternal rhythm of nature, marking their journey through the realms as harbingers of the slow, methodical change of time. Luminesca, the plane that radiates light and is built upon the words of the Old Father, an unknowable being who it is said crafted the plane itself. This is where you will find 4 major factions forged around the 4 keepers. In our previous visit, I told you about the blue and green keepers, that of the Keeper of Knowledge and of Tradition respectively. But in this episode, we will discuss the white and red keepers, that of Order and Empathy. As with all things, the Keeper's first job is to aid in the orders of the Old Father, an entity that only the Keepers may speak with, As such, it's the job of the Keeper of Order and their followers to write to law the words of the Old Father and to enforce them. While rebellious actions are limited in this plane, as without the presence of black mana there is no desire to grasp for more than what is at hand, nevertheless rumblings of discontent still worm their way into society. You see, human nature still has a way of acting erratically in ways that the Old Father deems against his order. As such, it is the role of the Keeper of Order and their followers to ensure that any transgression is punished twofold, so that every citizen understands the importance of the Old Father's teachings. They do this out of love, as they do not wish any citizen to step out of the golden path, and it hurts them to execute one of the Old Father's children, but that is what must be done to maintain order. When it comes to the Keeper of Empathy and their followers, the task is to maintain the radiant essence that courses through the plane like a stream. This radiant light is what ensures every citizen is calm, kind, and empathetic to their fellow man. But of course, to produce something so magnificent, it requires equal exchange. As such, this Keeper and their congregation not only are tasked with maintaining the light of the Old Father, but providing it with the sustenance it needs to radiate as it does. This is where the heart well comes in, the mechanism for powering the light. Here's where those whose emotions have begun to pour out of them in ways that are not conducive to a proper society are sent. Within the well, all of a person's negative emotions are drained as they stand in its waters, turning them docile. This ritual then fills the light with the opposing positive emotions and helps those who follow the way to feel as the Old Father would want them to feel. As you can see, every keeper has a job, and every follower is devoted to the ways of the Old Father, so that when he does return, his people are ready. Mythoria, a plane devoid of red mana, is a land of somber skies, endless bureaucracy, and countless guilds and companies. Two such guilds that we spoke of in our last episode were that of Black-Green, the Ebon Tongue, the lawyers and scribes of endless cases, as well as the auditors of truth, those in white-blue. But these only scratch the surface of what factions populate the streets of Mythoria, such as the Futurist Company, the blue-black faction with an eye for technology and magic, as well as the contrasting Tuinian collective of white-green, who wish to unite the workers of this plane and bring it back to a time before it was ruled by the companies. The Futurist Company is one of the most influential companies on the plane, and are often credited as the driving force for change on Mythoria itself. It is them who invented the soul-powered automatons, machines which provide companies with value out of their employees even after their death. The steam rail, a fast-moving machine that snakes across the plane, and the Athronic Resonator, contraption which harnesses the power found deep within the plane's mana lines, converting it into the energies that power this world. Because of their work, Mythoria was pulled out of the Dark Ages, or at least that's what they like to claim. Being the largest company on the plane, they have their hands in everything, and this includes running much of Mythoria's government. Gone are the days of lobbying. Now is the time where company representatives hold seats in parliament. They look forward to a day where Mythoria can fully break the chains of the past and move into the future. But of course, such ways of thinking are always contrasted. As such, the Tuinian collective was founded by the druid Algeth as a rebellious movement to what he believed was Mythoria turning away from both nature and people. He saw the land being culled by great machines, workers toiling away past their own death, and had enough. Though he was a level-headed man, he knew something had to be done, as no debate in court would accomplish anything, for they would just be playing into the system that he saw as broken. So instead, he rallied others around him to sway the people, right at the source. As such, the Tuinians march upon the streets, stand upon soapboxes, and in some cases take more drastic actions. Their goal is one of a united Mythoria, but no company wishes to see them succeed, and so clashes with the Tuinians occur often on Mythoria's streets. Despite facing opposition from powerful corporations and encountering resistance from those invested in the status quo, the Tuinian collective remains steadfast in their mission, fueled by the determination of those who refuse to accept the current state of affairs. Who knows what the future for Mythoria holds, but whatever it is, a rising conflict seems to be on the horizon. In a world that is hostile to life, where every organism has faded away except for the Stonekin, there are but 4 factions, consisting of each of its colors, who have found their own ways to survive. We learned of the alchemists of blue mana who live along the Silver Sea, and of the Stonekin of black mana who have come from the swamp they call Mother. But there are those who reside in the jagged and violent mountains that are made up of red mana, as well as those in white mana, sedentary beings of the endless sands who move slowly with heavy stones upon their backs. Those Stonekin of red mana, with bodies like jagged volcanic stone and oozing magma, have sustained themselves by feeding off of lava flows. As such, their bodies have evolved as a result. These Stonekin can only be found on the violent mountain ranges of active volcanoes, but on a plane like Athex Prime, such ranges are numerous. This diet and way of living have caused more than physical adaptations. It has also buried its way into their soul, shaping their very temperament to be like that of the volcanoes they call home, always ready to burst out and rage down the hills. These Stonekin are violent and destructive for its own sake, laying waste to whatever crosses their path, their very essence shaped by the relentless fury of the molten earth. Perhaps this is why the slow-moving Stonekin of white mana reside in the open spaces of endless sands, far from the mountains and all that comes with it. In order to survive, these entities have learned that sticking close, sharing what is found, and moving with purpose is the only way to make it on Athex Prime. These Stonekin are a cautious lot, and move little, which has allowed sediment to aggregate on their backs. This growth slows them down, while providing a dense skin that protects them as well. It's also this growth which sustains them, absorbing into their own bodies so that they may never waste away, and as such they are almost stuck in place, forming groupings that could be mistaken for a hillside all its own if seen from afar. When they do move, mostly out of necessity, whether from danger or better suited conditions, a dust cloud follows in their wake, the sand kicking up under the weight of their colossal feet. It's here on Athex Prime where we learn that even if the land itself wishes you dead, that life still does find a way, in one odd form or another. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on this world building journey. It's fun exploring one's own creativity. But that said, this is where my part of the story ends, as I want to give myself the chance to explore new ideas, new concepts, and maybe new worlds. But this is where it begins for you. Take what I made, twist it, mold it, make it your own. I would love to hear stories of it used in your own D&D games, stories, or whatever. Also, keep an eye out as I will put all 3 of these episodes together into one video to help inspire your own works. With that, friends, I will catch you in the multiverse. Bye.